Hey folks, check it out. Today we're going to learn how to make a bouncing ball using Adobe Flash. Here it goes. I'll hit play. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make something like this. This is a good introductory project for learning how to use Flash. So we've got it open here. Let's go File, New Project. Oh, this is different than the normal splash screen. I wonder. Oh well, we'll just do this. Okay, HTML5, and then this is like the default. This is fine for now. If you know you want something HD size, then go ahead and change those. But for this project, we'll just leave it as it is. Let's hit OK. All right, so you've got a blank canvas here, and so this is where you will do all of your drawing and moving stuff around. I've got my tools up at the top. Yours might be over here on the right. Probably not like that. I think they were. Oh, geez, I'm messing everything up now. Anyway, I usually keep mine at the top. So if you want to drag yours up there, that's what I've done. Okay, let's use our paintbrush tool. And if I think by default your bucket will be white, and so you'll draw something here and you won't be able to see it because it uses the fill color, not the stroke color. Let's just undo that. Now if I change that to black, we'll be able to see it. Okay, so a couple things about the paintbrush. Over here on the right, you can see also you've got fill and stroke color there. You've got the brush shape. You can do this, flatness, angle. Okay, whatever. Width, I don't know. Over here, smoothing. This is something you might want to play around with. If you have smoothing set to 0, then whatever you draw will stay exactly how it was. See how it's all kind of jagged. If, on the other hand, you have it up to 100, then it's going to smooth that a lot. And the danger is some of it might actually leave gaps there like this. So then if you tried to fill it in afterwards, then it might make it tricky. So I don't know, play around with that. I usually keep it around 50. It's a good medium. Okay, and then over here you've also got your brush mode. So for now we'll just do paint normal. There's some other times you might want to use these other kinds. And brush size, so if you want it bigger or smaller, that's how you do it. One tricky thing with Flash, if you're used to Photoshop or Illustrator or any of those things, you know, their brush sizes are in pixels, and so it stays the same number of pixels whether you're zoomed in or out. This one with Flash, watch, I'll zoom in. So I'm at 400% now. I go back to the brush. It's still the same brush size. Oh, have they changed this? Maybe they've changed it. Okay, good for them. It used to be that it would get smaller the more you zoomed in. Okay, edit that part out of the video. So don't worry about that. Let's make a bouncing ball. So I'm going to draw our ball first of all. Let's draw it at the top of the bounce. That was terrible. Okay, I'm just using my mouse for this, so it's not going to look the best. Okay, then as long as you've got it, you know, as long as it makes a complete circuit and there's no gaps in there, then you can then go to the paint bucket up here and just click and it'll fill it in with the color of your choice. Even if you don't have a complete gap, like if I've got a little space in there, I can choose the paint bucket, and then over here gap size, you could choose close, medium, gaps, and it'll fill it in just fine for you, but just so you know how that works. Okay, so now I click on it, and anything that's that color it will select together. Okay, let's go down here to layer, and it's a good habit to name your layer. So this one we will name ball. Let's zoom back out so I can see the whole thing. I'm probably using a few shortcuts that I should explain. So the zoom is Z, is the hotkey. If you hold Alt, then it switches to zoom out. Shortcut for brush is B. And any of these, if you just hover over it, it'll tell you what the shortcut is. So the ones we'll be using the most in this tutorial are the brush, the selection tool, which is V, and maybe the transform tool, which is Q. Okay. Alright, so we've got our ball layer. Now let's make one more layer. So I'll just click here on new layer. And notice it by default it puts it above whichever layer you have selected, but I want this one below it. So I'll just click and drag it down, and let's name this one ground. And I'm going to draw a line on the ground, and let's make it a slightly different color, light gray maybe, like that, just so we know how far the ball is going to go down. Okay, so let's make this last for 1 second, and you can see down here at the bottom we're going at 24 frames per second. So that means we need 24 frames. So I'm going to click over here on frame 24. I think I could also probably type it in here. Nope, not yet. So I'll just click on there. And I'm going to right click once I have that selected, and I will go here, insert keyframe. Okay, so now is a good time to explain the concept of frames and keyframes. So notice down here in the timeline, on frame 1, we have a little black circle here on the ball layer. And then it goes the rest of the way and it's blank, and then this one that we just made is also a black circle. Okay, so that means anytime you've got a black circle, that is a keyframe. So this is information telling the computer that on frame 1 I want this ball to be right here, and also on frame 24 I want this ball to be right here. Okay, so right now it's in the exact same spot because the ball is going to bounce. It'll go boom, boom, and it'll end up in the same spot it started. Alright, now let's do this. Notice how when I move to frame 24 the ground disappears because it is only on frame 1, and then as we skip forward it goes away. So we want the ground to stay there, and it's never going to change, so I don't need to put another keyframe. So let's select frame 24 and let's right click, and instead of keyframe we're just going to go insert frame. Okay, so now you see the difference there. There's no black dot, it's just an empty rectangle. So what's that saying is on frame 1 we have a keyframe, so the ground will be here and it will stay exactly the same until here. So it's not going to change at all. Alright. Potentially we could do the same with the ball if it wasn't going to move, but we're going to make it move, so that's why we needed a keyframe at the end. So let's go here halfway, frame 12, and let's insert a keyframe there. Okay, and now I'm going to hit V for my selection tool up here, and I'm going to drag this ball down and have it touch the ground. Okay, now I can go and kind of skim along the frames. Notice it's not moving because we've got this keyframe and it stays in this position until it gets to frame 12, and then all of a sudden it's down here and it stays there until it gets to 24, and then boom, it's back up at the top. So the next thing we need to do is make it gradually move from point A to point B. So what we do here is anywhere in this blank area, but make sure you're on the ball layer, just right click on there, and we are going to use a shape tween in this situation. Okay, in other tutorials I'll show you how to use classic or motion tween. For this one let's try a shape tween. Okay, and then we'll do the same here. So see how it made a little arrow showing that it's going to go from here to here, yeah? And then now it just stays there because there's no arrow in this part. So let's right click in there, create shape tween. So shape tweens are handy when you have a shape like this that well, I'll show you how this works. So now that I've got those tweens in there, I'm going to squish this down. So we're using a principle called squash and stretch. So imagining this is some kind of a rubber bouncy ball maybe, or like a kickball. You know, if you were to bounce that on the ground, it would kind of squash down right as it hits the ground, and then it would stretch out as it bounces up. Okay, so let's go up here to our transform tool, and we're going to squash this down. Now, when you're doing a squash and stretch, you need to maintain the same volume. So notice if I just squash it down, I'm basically cutting the volume in half. It would be like half of the mass of this ball is disappearing. So you also need to compensate for making it wider. Okay, so now you've got about the same volume in your ball, but it's transferred to being wider like that. And we still want it to hit the ground, so I'm just going to drag that down a little bit. Okay, so now see how it's gradually shifting from point 1 to point 2. Okay, so this is what the shape tween does, is it kind of gradually morphs and actually changes the shape of these things. I can show you another thing that it'll do later on, but let's finish this up. Okay, so with squash and stretch, I mean let's try playing this right now. I'm going to turn on loop, so if you click here, and see how it has a little in and out point, so let's just expand that so it's the whole thing. And then I hit play and it'll play over and over. Okay, that looks really stupid, right? What kind of ball does that? So the problem is we have the squashing part, but we don't have the stretching part. So what we need to do is, as the ball is falling, it should be kind of stretching out longwise, not widthwise, because you know it gets to the top and then it speeds up as gravity is pulling on it. So right here, I'm going to, so we've got our one in the middle. Just to the left of that, I'm going to put a new keyframe in there. So I'll right click, insert keyframe. This one, let's stretch out so it's kind of tall. And then we'll move that up so it's, you know, almost touching the ground, but not quite. Okay, so now it stretches out, and then, you know, right when it hits the hits the floor, then it squashes down. And then let's do the same thing just to the right of this keyframe. So I'm going to right click here, insert keyframe, and let's stretch this one out too. Something like that. Okay, so it hits the ground, and then, you know, because of the force of it bouncing off the ground, it's going to stretch out again. Maybe a little bit skinnier, I don't know. Okay, let's play that and see how that looks. Okay, that's better. Okay, so the one last thing we need to do to make this look right, right now it's going at a constant speed the whole time. So it falls at the exact same speed that it bounces up. But if you're really dealing with gravity or physics, you'd know, I mean, it should speed up as it gets closer to the ground, you know, move faster. And then as it bounces up, it'll it'll get, having a hard time talking today. It'll get slower until it reaches the top, and then it starts to fall down again, right? So we need to have it do something like that. You know? Let's turn on the onion skins. If you go down here, there's this feature called onion skins. So actually I'll turn on the outlines instead. And then notice this shows the range of the onion skin. So what that is it'll show in black the frame that we're actually on, but then it will also show the outlines of 2 frames before and after. And I can drag the onion skin over. So now we're seeing the outline of everything in that animation. And as I move to the left or right, oh, it'll only do it if it has a keyframe there. So here we can see each outline is the exact same distance from each other. It's like it divided it equally in 12ths, and that's where we put those. So to create the illusion of gravity here, we want to use a principle called easing in or easing out. So I can just go here and I'm going to left click on any point in this arrow here. Just left click anywhere. And then over here on the right hand side, see how it says tweening? And then there's this value for ease. So if I ease wonder if I want to turn onion skin off for this. Yeah, so now I can just see the actual ball. Okay, so ease, if you can go to the left, and that makes it negative, so that's easing in, or I can turn it to the right, and that's easing out. So the difference is easing in makes the movement slower at the beginning and faster at the end. And then easing out is the opposite, so it's faster at the beginning, slower at the end. So notice how, if I have this at 0, look at the placement of this ball. Okay, so that's where it was when it was all divided equally. When I drag it to the left, so I'm easing in, watch this ball, and it's going to move up. Okay, that is because it's moving slower at the beginning of this. And then whichever one I have here, so if I'm easing in while it's falling down, then I click down here and I'll go the opposite way. I'm going to ease out. Notice how it moved up. So now if we turn the onion skins back on, now see how there's a lot more drawings when it's at the top of the arc, and then they gradually get spaced out farther as it gets closer to the ground. So that's creating the illusion of it moving faster when it gets close to the ground. Let's go ahead and play that. Oops. Expand the whole thing, turn off the onion skins, turn looping back on, so it'll loop everything in between those two. There we go. How about that? That looks a lot better, huh? And probably the one more thing that I would do is I would go right here to our very last keyframe, or just to the left of our last keyframe. So that's our last keyframe. The problem is this keyframe and this one are exactly the same. So when it gets to this point, it's almost like it freezes in time, right? So it's there for just slightly too long. So there's 2 ways to fix this. Either on this very last one, I could move it up just a touch. So with it selected, I can just hit the arrow up one. So now it's not exactly in the same spot. And that took care of it. Okay. So there you go. So that's how you do a bouncing ball animation. Let me just show you how to turn this into a movie so that you can show other people. Probably the simplest thing to do would be go here to File, Export, choose Export Movie, and under Format, choose SWF Movie, and let's name this Bouncing Ball, and hit Save. Okay, so you just need to keep track of where you told it to save. Mine went to Documents, and here it is. So let's double click that, and there it is. And these SWF files automatically loop for you, so it's just going to play over and over. Now, if you want to export it as a QuickTime movie, I can show you how to do that. Let's just close this. So let's say you wanted to bring this into Final Cut or something where you're going to add sounds to it. SWFs don't work very well for that. So we can go here to File, Export Video. Ignore stage color. No, we'll leave that. We don't need to use media encoder for this. Stop exporting when last frame is reached. Sure. Okay. And let's tell this to save also in Documents. Format, QuickTime Movie. Yep, good. Export. Maybe it's done already. There's that. Okay. Then QuickTime movies will only play once and then they stop. So we can turn looping on if we go to View and Loop, and now it should play over and over. There you go. So then this one you could bring into any video editing software and add sound effects or whatever else you want to do. So I hope that's useful for you. Go ahead and try making some bouncing balls and animating some stuff in Flash and have fun.